What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Frank Analysis. I'm your host, Franco. Where is independent media right now when it comes to environmental issues? Surely there are some channels that talk about it, but are they going deep enough? This one person who I have on today certainly is going deep enough, and that's Kevin Sandblum from Black Bear News. It's really great to have you on, Kevin. I tell people that this is a channel that they should follow. You're no longer on YouTube, you're now on Rockfin, but you go really deep into the analysis of environmental issues. And I think that that's a space that independent media really needs right now. So, Kevin, thank you very much for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I stacked up some extra boxes just for this occasion.
oh, nice. Yeah, so I just want to start by asking you, like, where do you think independent media news is right now when it comes to environmental issues? Like, I know you've talked about it on your show, but I would like my audience to hear your perspective of that.
I think I think basically that independent media is far behind, uh, far behind where they should be as far as environmental news goes. There are not a lot of YouTubers or independent journalists that are really diving deep on environmental issues. Um, that's unfortunate. It is a weird space to be in because I think people just generally don't want to deal with the news. I think it's something it's one of those issues that makes people uncomfortable
Hmm.
because it's so big, and there aren't really any easy answers, and so it's kind of overwhelming, I think, for people. And I think that's just a reality that it's emotionally, it's a lot for people.
There's a lot of
So
nuances. So
rather
like
not
they
deal
gotta
with.
inform themselves about biology, like all the environmental science, ecology, even its animal behavior. Like all these things are interconnected, right?
Yes.
Climatology. They have to consider all these things. So it's just I guess it's a lot of time that people would have to dedicate in order to talk about certain issues regarding
Yes.
the environment. There are some channels that talk about like environmental activism that's happening on
Yeah.
the ground, like Lee Camp.
Sure.
Graham Elwood also talks about it sometimes, but again, they're not as deep into it as you are.
Yeah, and I appreciate them for doing that. They are one. I try to point out channels that are covering the environment, but it seems to be one of those issues that's and also climate change, right? So everybody's like, oh, the Democrats are screwing us, and the Republicans are a mess, and you know uh, the cabal is doing all the stuff to us, and all that is true. But it seems to be that's that people want to talk about just the general political climate, and then go and climate change. Oh, and climate change is
Right,
a
yeah.
problem. And in my mind, climate change is the problem, and a lot of people aren't there yet. And again, because maybe because it is uncomfortable, or maybe it is. But I mean, if we're going to actually do something about it in a fundamental, overarching way, it's going to have to become the problem. And things are, and also I think that it, it's one thing to talk about political issues and how they affect us, but if you're not talking about political issues in the context of climate change, then um, I think the mark is missed.
Hmm.
You know, because when you're just talking about the Green New Deal or people getting solar panels on their house, or we got to switch our infrastructure, that's not, we're not even in the same city on that issue, right? Like I think Planet of the Humans, the film by Michael Moore, did a really good job in spelling out the enormity, the severity of the climate crisis, in conjunction to what people think is going to be the answer to it. And those kind of voices and those kind of messages, and uh, are ones that are being constantly suppressed and not, and people don't want to look at that stuff. You know, if you, I don't know if you watched that film.
Yeah, I saw it. It
Yeah,
was
but
it was
if
very
you,
doom and gloom.
oh yeah,
And it was so a lot of people who, when I first came into this space, like when I started listening back in like 2016, 2017 to more independent channels, like for example Humanist Report, Secular Talk, they would talk about Sunrise, they would talk about 350.org, Naomi Klein, and these people like Naomi Klein and what's his name from 350.org, they were the ones that wanted that movie Planet of the Humans to be censored because it exposed their grift. Like these channels initially, when I would watch them and they talk about environmental issues, like I feel like they used to talk about it more often than they do now, but they would present electoral politics as a solution. Like, oh, this is why we needed a Green New Deal, but that's
yeah,
not enough. It's not enough. And we also need to really understand what's going on, like all the nuances behind it, all the sciences. But yeah, what are your thoughts on these people like Naomi Klein, who wanted to censor Planet of the Humans, which in your opinion, or not so much in your opinion, but in reality is more accurate, right, than the analysis that some of these NGOs give about what's happening with our climate?
absolutely. Yeah, I was having a kind of a debate on Twitter just last night, this morning with someone, and just kind of spelling out that the people who are speaking the truth about climate change are being suppressed. The climate scientists and the journalists like Michael Moore or other people that are talking realistically about where we're at with climate science or climate change or the climate disaster, or whatever you want to call it. They're the ones that are being, the backlash is, easily, viewable. They're being suppressed, they're being squashed. They are not allowed on mainstream media. They don't want to hear that. So there seems to be kind of like two competing camps around climate change. One is the, as you say, the NGO, government, Green New Deal camp, which is like, let's keep everything going with green energy, with renewables. And then there's, the other camp of climate change activists, which are like, no, we need something way deeper than that. We need transformation on a, you could say transformation on a societal level, but on a, almost on a human level, we need to reprogram ourselves to deal with the situation. And that, again, getting back to why that is so, why it makes it such a gigantic problem to tackle, but you can only do it one day at a time, one step at a time, one change at a time, right? You want to change your life. You don't wake up in the morning and change your, life is totally different, right? Like people talk about changing their lives, and the way that happens is, one incremental step at a time, and that's kind of how we have to approach climate change. I think if we're going to have a chance, it's just kind of, little by little. But I think that people are waking up to the obviousness of the problem, right? We have, power grids going down in Texas because of a polar snap, which is caused by the reason why that extreme cold thing happened in Texas is because the Arctic is so hot. If you look at the difference in temperature anomalies in the Arctic, it's exponentially off the charts, right? The Arctic is 2, 3, 4, 5 C hotter all the time than the rest of the planet. So this heat in the Arctic is pushing out the cold air that's supposed to stay in the Arctic, and pushing it over places like Oklahoma and Texas. And that's why we keep getting a polar vortex every single year. So these extreme weather things are causing, massive power blackouts in Texas, right? And now it's so hot, they're like, well, we might have a blackout again because of extreme heat. So, we have wildfires every single year in California that are forcing people out of their homes. People are, on a ground level facing severe extreme weather situations because of climate change, right? They're losing their homes, they're losing their ability to stay in their homes, they're losing their ability to have, to maybe function normally. Sometimes we have climate refugees all over the planet.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's paying attention to what's happening in Southeast Asia over the last few years, the exponential rise in storms, rainstorms, cyclones, floods, all kinds of things, droughts happening in India, China, all over the area. These things are increasing every single year and literally forcing farmers off their land, forcing people out of their homes, forcing people to do other, into cities to go get jobs because they can't grow food anymore. I mean, it's happening in real time. And so I think people are going to eventually, it's going to be harder and harder for people to just say like, that's not,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's that bad or something like that,
It's important also for people to know like who is taking advantage of the moment, right? Who's taking advantage of these crises, like these shocks, like how Naomi Klein herself talked about, but she's now getting paid by some of these people that she exposed in her book, The Shock Doctrine.
Right.
Like the Ford Foundation, for example, that was paying money for her documentary series. But then there's also Bill Gates, who's taking advantage of this moment. He's buying off all this farmland. The World Economic Forum, right? These are things that you talk about on your show also, but also Cory Morningstar, Wrong Kind of Green. They expose these like NGOs and their ties to these powerful people. But yeah, you talk about the Great Reset and the World Economic on your show, right?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I think it's also fairly obvious that, there are people that want to use this, disaster or whatever is happening to create their own agenda, to kind of transform the world in their vision, whatever that might be, and it's not one that a lot of people are very, people that see what's going on, they're not very happy about. And I think people are being led astray. People are being led down the path of like, well, if we just have these net zero goals and these Green New Deal policies, and we're going to transform our infrastructure, and we're going to save ourselves through technology, et cetera, et cetera. I think, it's very hypnotic, the messaging, right? Like if we just do these things, we can avoid, real catastrophe. And that is really unfortunate because they're misinforming people about what's really going on. They all know, that's the thing, is that all these people know how bad the situation is. And they're kind of soft pedaling it in a way, they're like, well, it's, things are, this is what it's going to look like pretty soon. Things are really bad, but if we just do these things, we'll be okay, right? Or we'll avoid catastrophe.
If you just keep giving us more money so that we can give you like green energy, things will be okay. Just give us your money. Pretty much how it is.
Right. And the thing with that camp of I don't know what you want to call them, people that are in the climate change world. The thing about that camp is that they want to keep things going the way they are. That's the message, is like, we can keep this all going. We can all be okay. Everything's, equity and, all that stuff, justice, right? We're going to take care of people in developing countries, and we're going to, it all sounds really like nice and shiny, and like it's marketing, right? It's just a big marketing gimmick. Like, we're going to, everybody's going to have to buy new electric cars. It's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. And that's misinformation of the highest order. And it's, I that's what I'm trying to do with my channel, I think.
Yeah.
And some other, a few other folks are trying to point out.